Welcome back to the Habit Architect. I'm Michael Cups, and with me as always is Reem. Not always, but a lot of times. But she's, as you'll hear from this session, she may be with us in spirit because she's really paid attention to our guests, which is I'm very grateful for it. But also we've had some great guests, and so last week we went through episodes 1 through 11, I think, and we had 10. Sorry, had 10 episodes. So today we're going to talk about another 9. It was a great season. Hopefully you're getting value out of listening to the replays of them. And let's dive into it, Reem. Let's talk about these next 9 episodes.
Don't be silent. So many men struggle in silence.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
they think they've got to fix it themselves.
Yes.
And they don't.
I think if everybody can have one micro habit that they do a day, and it can be really tiny and something that you might think is silly, like brushing your teeth or taking your supplements, but I think that they act as a trigger for you to then follow on with other habits that come from there. It's like a chain reaction.
There are about 30 million people in the United States who meet the diagnostic criteria for alcohol use disorder. Less than 3% are prescribed any medication to help them drink less or quit. And this is true despite there being multiple safe, effective, FDA-approved medications that have been around for decades.
What was your first thought when they said, hey, you need to get out of your house?
Well, I could see the smoke coming, and it was the first time I thought, wow, this could actually happen. Because in the past, you live in a neighborhood like this and you think there's no way, it's just physically impossible, but the winds were blowing at 115 miles an hour and it looked inevitable. And my first thought was, what do I take?
Psychological safety is the number one success factor for high performing teams and organizations. And when we have varying viewpoints where people can feel heard and feel seen, then that improves the organization. And that requires gender differences. That requires diversity across the board.
If you could instill one habit in every COE tomorrow, in the team that runs a COE tomorrow, what would it be?
Listening.
Nice. Could you just tell us some of those pitfalls of relying on AI too much in kind of B2B marketing?
I think that we're in such an experiment mode still of trying to figure out where to use it and how to use it. And then you have different skill levels coming in, using it with different skill levels. I view it more as an assistant. I definitely have to know where I want to point it in order to get the quality of content out of it that I want.
So how do you construct a system that enables privacy and granular levels of security and control so that they feel comfortable that there's enough information to keep them safe and understand how the information can help them be healthier? But at the flip side, how do they maintain their dignity and privacy?
Let's start. Part 2 of the recap is actually very exciting for me because this is the final episode of season 1. I'm so excited for season 2. Oh. Michael, you're going to tell us more about season 2 at the end, right?
Yes. We're already lining up some fantastic guests. I'm really looking forward to it. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but these last 9 episodes were just different than the first 10. They gave me the vibe of what do you hold on when everything is changing? Because we talked about recovery, reinvention, caregiving, confident aging, stuff like no one talks about, and it just shapes everything. So
Yeah, it's interesting that you did view that, but you're right that sometimes building a better us is not what we add, but what we take away, right? So, just be prepared.
And something you told me about is a good habit isn't just a personal upgrade. It's a habit that you take on. So it's something that supports your identity, the way you work, someone you love, even when life gets messy. It's just one habit that you obtain,
Yeah, it's actually on my habit tracker. I don't have it in front of me, but in my Time Bandit app, the habits I added since we started this podcast is gratitude. So just a daily dose of gratitude. And it's so easy to do, but it's also so easy to forget if you don't bring it to the forefront. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, let's start with episode 11. It was with Fiona Ross, the leadership coach who works with the male executives and challenges the old scripts. And I'll never forget this line. We've got generations of men that are brought up on Windows XP programming that isn't fit for purpose today. And when she said that, like how you do one thing is how you do everything, that one also hit me.
Yeah, well, let's take the first one. I think that's an interesting and very insightful view of the world. You're right. We were taught things that some of them still apply today, but some of them don't because the world has changed. And if you're still running on an old operating system, then you're probably missing out on what you could be enjoying and doing in this new world. And I mean, I think nothing accentuates this more than this revolution of AI, right? I mean, you have an opportunity to trade up, if we'll use that word again, how you behave in this world and how you receive and give to others. And, that's, if it's on an old operating system, it's very hard to do.
I agree, and that episode was just full of things to take away. Again, when she said how you do one thing is how you do everything, it made me think, what habits am I practicing in private that shapes how I show up in public? She reminded me that true presence isn't just a switch you flip; it's like how you live every day. So it was actually like very heavy, and it was just awesome.
Yeah, it was a great episode, and I just think it's apropos. She coaches executives. She's based out of England, so it's probably most of her clientele is in England. But what does she call herself? The Queen of Kings. So it's a great way of saying it.
It just fits her. I just can't say anything but that.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we had Sophie Stardust. That episode was empowering to see women doing the trip in India. That episode was like a breath of fresh air. She reframed the structure as freedom. And also she said something that is very, very, very nice. My calendar isn't a cage, it's a sanctuary. And I remember smiling when she said that, because it gave me permission to build systems that felt like support, not pressure, like something that I want to be supported by, not just pressure to be something else or like more or something like that.
Yeah, Sophie was one of those guests that was a spark of energy too, right? She just had a good sense of it. And she talked about simple habits, walking the dog as a habit. And it's almost like when you can change your perspective of that, it's something you get to do as opposed to something you have to do. And she just had that kind of presence about her. That trip that they did in India, I forget the real numbers. I think it was like 60 women took tuk-tuk, I think is what she called them, from one side of India to the other. And just what a phenomenal way to raise money and probably experience something you once in a lifetime kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And one other story that is stuck with me is her last name, how she got that. And that one, I'm not going to say. You guys go watch the episode and see when she says about her last name.
Yeah, exactly. But what she really taught us in that episode is very practical, positive view of life, right? So,
yeah. Then comes episode 13, and it was your solo episode, Michael, and you said something that stayed with me, which is, if you can't name where your time went, you probably didn't choose it.
Yeah.
That was a wake-up call for me.
I stick by that. And if you think, and when I talk about calendars, I really do think they can be the enemy. They don't have to be, but they can be the enemy, because if you say yes to all those invites, you're going to spend your day on someone else's agenda and you may not get to yours. And there's nothing worse for people when you look back in a day or a week or a month or a year and you say, God, where did the time go? I didn't get done what I wanted to do, whether it was exercise or health or work or whatever. And so that's one of the shames. In the last episode, I mentioned, if our average life is 75, you only get 75 trips around the sun. So you don't want to regret them.
Use them wisely.
Yes.
And then came Jonathan Hunt Glassman, and his story was raw and powerful. He talked about recovery and what it took to break a habit that wasn't serving him. Yep. And he said, I had to make the habit I hated harder to reach, not through willpower, but friction. And that line made me realize that some change doesn't need more effort, it needs more design.
Yes. Yeah, and I think recovery is one of those topics that we do hope to get into more in future seasons. And it's so powerful, but at the essence of it is change of behavior. And that change can be hard, especially when there's chemicals involved. If it's a process addiction, it could be something else. And I like the way he said, insert friction. And one of the worksheets, and we can throw them into the chat too, is that I have about break habits is make it hard. Make it difficult to continue that habit if you want to break it. After you make it hard and it gets to some level of success, then you're going to replace it with something else. But it is a system. And I think what Jonathan's doing with his Or Health is fascinating and really important, because alcoholism in particular, and that's what he specifically addresses, when you think about it and you hear about it in movies, it's always, oh, we'll just go to a meeting and stuff like that. And there's some real mental problems with it. There's some chemical addiction to it. And there is a lack of ability to control, because they've lived a lifestyle in a certain way. And so to change that is monumental. And what Jonathan's doing with Or Health, giving you a boost to do that, to take that craving away. And that allows you to focus on getting the mental thing right, getting the health thing right, and stuff like that. So it's very powerful. And I think Jonathan did a great job describing it too.
Yes. It was very powerful episode. And good luck to anyone that's trying to break a habit, because it doesn't need luck. It needs systems and it needs steps, and you just need the will to break it. And again, Michael, you can actually drop the link to how to break a habit in the comments, and it's going to help a lot of people.
Yep, we'll do.
Breaking a habit, as small as like doom scrolling, or like as big as.
Well, and I'll drop a link to Or Health, because if alcoholism a lot of times is a silent thing, because people can't admit it. So we'll put the link out there if you need help. Go talk to Jonathan and his team. They're great.
And then we had Donna Tellam. Her episode was amazing. It was so heartfelt. She walked us through her caregiving system for a loved one, and she said the binder wasn't for control. It was so I could stay present during chaos. And she made us all think about what peace of mind actually looks like, and it was just very heartfelt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Donna's built is very powerful, because it, like you just said, you're not worried about the details. You can spend that time with the loved one when they're, maybe on their last kind of weeks or months. Or, if you're in an area where, in the US, particularly Reem, we have a lot of areas that are subject to fires. And she was part of one of those in Colorado, Boulder area, and she had to evacuate quickly, and she was, being prepared is all you can do. I have a home in a hurricane area, and there's tornadoes, and there's all kinds of things. Being prepared it may not be easy to do, because you've got to find all your stuff, but getting prepared makes it easy to handle what's ahead of you. So
yeah, the binder behind the door. Near the door. That was a very nice one. Same with Dr. Jennifer episode. Her episode was one of the most affirming conversations I think we had on this season. She didn't just talk about menopause. She reframed it. And she said menopause isn't a decline, it's a rise into power. And as a woman, I just loved watching this episode, because she normalized this kind of language, and it gave permission for women to own the phase instead of shrinking in silence and just like vanishing into the noise or something like that. So that one was very powerful.
Yeah, it was. And what a very impressive individual too. She, from professional swimming athlete, or professional competitive, I think, in collegiate level, to what she's doing now. And it is something, we talked about alcoholism earlier, and that's something that some people don't want to talk about, or it's like, well, menopause is one of those things too, right? It's not something that you get a choice about either. So she talked about a great way of recognizing that. I think she called it the U curve, and where you sit on that U curve to just how you handle the situation. So very powerful. I encourage every woman to go watch that discussion with Dr. Jennifer, follow her and find out, track her. And then if you're a male and you're watching this, go tell your mom and your wife or whomever else you care about to watch it, because I just think it's great advice for all women. So
yes, it was such a powerful episode. Then we had Tony on episode 17. He did not sugarcoat anything. He said, if you ignore people, you can expect transformation to stick. And that line should be stapled everywhere. He talked about operations and transformation, and it was just a very powerful, dense episode. It was so nice.
Yep. Yeah, well, you see in the headlines everywhere that there's digital transformation or whatever sort of transformations that are always going. And I think too often companies in particular think about the idea and the path to get that idea to reality, and they forget some of those things like how are the people going to be impacted? How are our customers going to feel about this change? How are our employees going to feel about this change? And Tony did a great job of talking about how well-rounded that is. And yeah, he didn't hold any punches because he's a kid from Detroit, and I think that's just what's in their system. And he really covered it well. And the concept of center of excellences and building for good is a too big of a word, but building for a way that says, okay, the human and the AI or the human and the process change are going to work together. So I think it was very powerful.
Yes, and then comes Shannon, because also she said something related to AI. She said something that felt very surreal. She said, AI without strategy is just fast food. And even more, she said, busy doesn't mean effective. And that one called me out in the best way, because sometimes I mistake motion or being busy as, effective. And she just reminded us all that clarity is a habit too. You need clarity, whether what you're doing is actually reflecting or it's affecting, or you're just being busy and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many people that do that. And because we think we're busy, we think we're productive, and we're far from it, right? I mean, I think, and I've talked about this before, Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, and you look back and you go, we didn't accomplish anything. We just had a lot of meetings. And so just because you're in motion doesn't mean you're productive. So you have to really sit back and make sure that I think that's where the values come in. What is it that we're trying to accomplish and why, whether it's us individually or us as a family or us as a team in work. And if you don't have that why, then you got to really question what are you doing here? So.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And she also said that strategy is the best habit that wins. And that one actually something that you would say.
Yeah, it is very much so. Yeah. And Shannon's been she's been a marketer for years in tech. And so she's probably seen a lot of behaviors that are productive and non-productive, and has been able to kind of assess, this is how you go forward, and as opposed to, and so often it's so easy to, when you think about marketing and sales, it's a joke, but it's not a joke. The fact that they both point fingers at each other and say, you're not doing your job, you're not doing your job. Well, if you both go do your job, it's going to be better together, kind of thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And then we close the season with Kathy Miller, who works with older adults in home design. It was a softer conversation, but one of the most powerful ones also. And she said, the best routines preserve dignity. So
her entire company wisdom is, what they're building is quite extraordinary when you think about our aging population. And there is a desire not to go to an assisted living home by some people. Some people, it's the right choice, and that's great. But if you want to be at home, how can you design a system that understands your habits, and when those habits get out of whack, alert somebody? That may not be emergency, but at least and I think what an incredible thing from a home health perspective it's going to create is this using technology just to make sure everything's okay, right? And it doesn't always have to be changing something. It's just, in this case, it's just measuring the well-being of that house, but it gives that individual the freedom to be where they want to be, right? Maybe they've worked for years building that garden and they don't want to leave it behind. So, and that's where they should be, because it's their place, right? It's their sanctuary.
Yeah, and because building habits isn't about your growth only, it's about making someone else's day easier, safer, or more.
Yeah, it's incredible technology. So go back and watch that episode. I think they're building something really incredible there.
Woohoo! And we're done. And we're too quick, Michael.
Well, that's okay, because we want people to go back and watch the episodes and not necessarily the recap. So it makes sense. Should we talk a little bit about, do you have any final thoughts about season 1?
Just wow. Again, when I was recapping and I was watching and I was taking notes, I just realized how diversity of the episodes we had, diversity of guests, and we talked about everything. We made sure that we are giving people habits or advices or something that they would take with them when the episode is done. So I'm just very proud of this season, and I'm very excited for season 2.
Yeah, well, me too. And to wrap up season 1, I think I just want to say thank you to all the guests. because they came on and they shared, right? And every story was different. Every story had an important element to it about what they were talking about, the topic, whether, like we said today, we had alcoholism to menopause, but, we also had fitness, and we had just, doing better on a daily routines and inspirational stuff. So I think the guests were great. So looking forward, season 2, we don't have all the guests lined up. We're still shaking through it and getting topics and stuff like that. But, what I really want to do is explore things like simplifying habits, right? How do we not make, I just can't stand seeing those LinkedIn posts that say, here's 23 productivity tips you need to implement today. I'm like, how? So let's focus on simplifying the habits that matter, right? And then let's talk about leadership in how we lead even in our communities, to our workplaces, et cetera. Personal transformations. I want to talk a little bit more about that. I think the concept of physical fitness, how are you getting healthier, or, addiction, or even cancer survivors and things like that. I'd like to get some stories about that. That may be a little touching or a little, twinge on the heart, but I think it's worth talking about. So that's really what we're doing in season 2. We've got some great guests already lined up. We've got 2 doctors, actually, 2 separate episodes. One that is using AI in his rounds in a hospital, right? Which is very interesting. And he's become an AI expert, but he's a physician. And so it's an interesting blend of something that we have to do every day or week. We think about our health, and sometimes you have to go to the doctor. Well, where's AI fit in that scene? We have another one that's going to help hopefully discuss joint health with us. So, how do we make sure that we have healthy bones and joints as we age? We've got some, I just think it's going to be some great guests, and we've got several more lined up. I don't know the order of them, maybe episode 1 of season 2, or maybe episode 10, but we're going to get them all lined up and talk about those things. But really, we're going to try to focus a little bit more with purpose and intention around some of those key elements, simplifying, leadership, that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
Are you excited about it, Reem?
Yeah. So we're moving towards less but better, simpler systems, focused leadership, fewer inputs, but more intention.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
so excited for the next season, and I'm just very, very excited to actually, tackle the simple things and like feeling like you're living on purpose, not just autopilot, like tackling one by one. So excited for that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's a great way of summing it up. We've got an opportunity to talk to different people about different topics, but it's all about the same thing, which is kind of this life, and how can we have a great day every day? It's kind of the way that we need to think about it. And sometimes it's a challenge. Some days you don't want to, some weeks you don't want to, but there's a way through it. And the more stories you hear, the more I think it personalizes what your journey needs to be, right? So not everything applies to you, but the ones that do can really make a difference.
If the shoe fits.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're wrapping up. I just want to say thank you, Michael, for this opportunity, and thank the guests for coming and sharing their stories. And whether you joined us on episode 1, episode 19, or the recap here, thank you. And until next time.
Yeah. I just want to say, if you liked it and you use Spotify or Apple or YouTube as your favorite player, just give us a subscribe, a follow, like, whatever mechanism puts it in your queue, because we want more consistent listeners, and that's one easy way to make it happen.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Reem. I really appreciate you working with me, and I think I did promise you, because you're getting married, one of those binders, so I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, Haisan told me that you're actually gonna give us a warming gift, a binder, so we can keep all our
Yes, so you can get organized.
We need help with being organized. I'm telling you that from now.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Reem. Appreciate it. Thank you, Hatham, as well, for producing, and we'll see you all next season.
Thank you. Bye-bye.